These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Hey, you know who won another game yesterday? That's their 5th on the year, guys. The Minnesota Vikings. Hey, maybe now you'll put them in your power rankings.
Yeah, I will. How's that an overreaction? You're using Overreaction Monday to troll me for my power rankings?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, very good. Move on. Pound sand.
No, you didn't like that one?
No,
I mean,
I think you're improperly using this very hallowed turf of the Rich Eisen show.
The Vikings are a really good team.
They are.
They are?
They are.
Oh, it took you 6 weeks.
We
Okay.
talking playoffs or what?
Talking winning the division.
They're 2.5 up on the Packers. And who else is coming to get them? Not the Bears.
No.
Not the Lions.
Wait, Rich Eisen, to this point, has not had the Vikings in his power rankings?
Apparently not. Yeah, I think he's not buying them up until now.
5 weeks?
That's sort of weird because how can you not buy them when the rest of the conference, like they are ascending record-wise, and the rest of the it's not like there's like 5 or 6 teams from the conference that are superior. That's what's sort of weird about it. I get the whole thing of they don't look great at times because he's right about that, but like, how do you leave him out?
Oh, we should get him on and grill his ass. That's what we should do. Or maybe, Judd, you can fire him on Twitter or something like you did on the Royce episode with Dave Roberts. I want to see Judd just like pick one person a week and just go at them randomly.
I'm done with him.
Dave Roberts, Rich Eisen.
The bigger takeaway is don't tell me a 2020 pandemic championship means a damn thing when you played a Little League American Legion season, okay? That's the bigger
I want to
takeaway.
fight you so bad on this because every team played under the same circumstances, but we are not going to talk about the 202020 baseball season here.
I'm glad you're back, Phil. Glad to have you back, too. By the way.
I appreciate it's therapeutic to be back, and just to the audience real quick, and then we're going to I mostly just want to unleash Vikings takes on you guys that I've had just building for 3 days, but the audience support has been just ridiculous. I mean, you guys have sent hundreds, maybe thousands of, like, to get messages from strangers, you know, that like we've never met in person, but you guys listen to our shows every day or you watch us on YouTube. Just really appreciate all the audience messages from people. So with that, I'd like to unleash some Vikings takes on you guys from the last few. We were kind of talking off microphone about the some of the analytics websites, like Football Outsiders has the Vikings like 17th right now. I think my biggest takeaway through the first 6 weeks of the season, Vikings 5-1, they are winning games against the grain of math. So I'll give you one just simple statistic that doesn't make much sense. But maybe it's a good sign. I don't know. Or maybe it's a sign of regression coming. The offense is averaging 5.4 yards per play. The defense is giving up 6 yards per play. Generally in the NFL, when you see a team that's giving up, and that's a large gap, when you see a team giving up a lot more yards per play than it is, gaining on offense, that is a sub 500 team. And so by that measure, and Football Outsiders would confirm this on their end, the Vikings who are 5-1 are supposed to be, quote unquote, like a 2 or a 3 win team right now. They're supposed to be like 2-4 or 3-3 according to just yards per play allowed. Yeah. Their defense is the second worst. You can say, oh, but they're a bend but don't break team. Well, their defense has the second worst red zone rate. Opponents are converting touchdowns in the red zone at an 80% rate on the defense. So it's just, I guess you could go one of two ways. You could say, well, they're doing a lot of other things that help them win games. A clutch drive toward the end, or key turnovers, Cam Dantzler ripping a ball away, or Patrick Peterson, or whoever it is.
Right.
And say, hey, this team is just good situationally, and it's trumping some of the math. Or you could say the math is going to catch up to them at some point after the bye week. I don't know what I guess I don't know. It's just kind of weird that they're 5-1 against the grain of math, I guess, is my biggest take here.
So I think this is why the grain of math, while important and certainly can play a role in how you build and or think about a football team, or if you're a fan, football games, this is the prime example too, and this is the perfect league for this, where you play 17 games, and each game is its own little commodity. And where this gets to be just so fun to talk about is this also gets into situational football. Because if
Hold on.
you're talking,
it's been about 5 days since I've been able to hit that button.
so when we're talking about situational football from game to game, that means adjustments. That means how do you approach things? And I was talking to Dex with this on, I think, Purple Daily yesterday, but I mean, it is the prime example. So they win in London, but as I recall, their third down efficiency and red zone efficiency in that game was lousy, and that's a problem. Like, that eventually is going to cost you a game. Like, you can't do that. You can do it for one game because it's football, but you can't do it for a sustained period of time. So what happens? The Vikings come back the last 2 weeks, and I believe their third down efficiency picked up. In fact, it was very good against the Dolphins. And then, just as importantly, the red zone efficiency the last 2 weeks has been really good comparatively. So that's where this is why, and I think Dex has said this 1,000 times on JHS about hockey. This is where you have to marry together and sometimes dismiss the math portion. Because yes, you know what? If the Vikings keep up everything that you just said, Phil, the regression in some way, shape, or form, especially against good teams, is coming. But that's the other thing. Look at who you're playing. I mean, you got drilled by a good team. Philadelphia took it to you. And I would argue that if you go in and play the same game in Buffalo, you're going to get drilled again. But the league is filled with so many average to below average teams that if you situationally succeed with this schedule that the Vikings have, you're going to win games. Like, this is what makes sports fun. This is why it gets frustrating when a person tries to say, these are the beliefs of what I think, and they are going to hold. That doesn't happen in sports. Everything melded together gives you an answer, but it can't be this, well, if they are not good, if their defense is allowing more yards, which ordinarily is a problem. But in this case, the Vikings, look at how they have succeeded. And this gets back to one very important thing to me. This is why Kirk Cousins' long-standing, but look at his stats, is such a meaningless argument. Kirk Cousins has statistically, like if you did blind statistic tests with no record, you wouldn't say this year, you know what? They're 5-1. No way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you would have showed us those stats 8 weeks ago, and then said, what do you think their record is going into the bye? I think all of us would have said, oh man, I mean, I guess if you are 3-3 at the bye, you take it and run, you're probably something like 2-4.
Yep.
But and for a few weeks it was because he's got these fourth quarter comebacks. So there have been drives in these high leverage situations late in games where he has stepped up when they need him, and they've closed the door on Detroit, New Orleans, and Chicago. But they're winning despite him, really. Like, it's not like, oh, his stats are bad, but he's kind of flipped it inside out now. Look how great he is on third down. He's been atrocious on third down. If you look at his, just Kirk Cousins' individual third down advanced metrics, for instance, EPA and some of these stats, he is like 30th among quarterbacks. So he's not even been situationally good. So there's two ways to look at that. It's, boy, he's playing like garbage. If that continues to happen, you're probably not going to keep winning games. But then the other way to look at it is, boy, you're 5-1, and he hasn't even started playing well yet. And he probably will. Like, this system is fairly well catered to his strengths. You got weapons all over the place. The offensive line, while shaky on the interior against the Dolphins, has been a lot better this season. So I think it's just what path do you want to take when looking at what could happen? But to your point, Judd, how many teams, once the bye week is over, on their schedule, do they really have to bring their A game to beat? Arizona at home? Probably not. At Washington? You can probably beat them with your B- game on the road. Mm-hmm. Buffalo, got to bring your A game. I think Dallas at home, probably got to bring your B+ A- game.
Yeah.
New England's kind of weird because they could just come up with a scheme. It's a short week, though, against New England. The Jets and the Giants have gotten off to good starts. I don't know that you need your A game to beat those teams at home. So you could, that's the funny thing, too, because you could continue to allow more yards per play than you're gaining and probably still finish with 10 or 11 wins just based on the teams that you're playing. Mm-hmm. But there has been no team that I can think of that at the end of the season, they're allowing a half yard per play more than they are gaining, and they still finish like 11-6 or 12-5. I don't think that exists. So they are going to have to turn that trend around.
So Dex and I did a pie chart of praise for 5-1 at the bye. And this is why I gave the biggest chunk, 30%, to Kevin O'Connell. Because what they are doing to me is a lot of ultimately in-game successful coaching too. And look, I mean, here's the thing too. First of all, do I think this is a Super Bowl team? No, I don't. It's a playoff team, clearly, right now. But I mean, do I think that this is a team that's going to get to the championship game for the National Football League? No, I don't. So my expectation is not there. Now, I want to see them win a Super Bowl before I die, but I don't think the first year of a coach with personnel that he's trying to get used to is going to be that team. So that's the first thing. The second thing is he has done a lot, in my opinion, a lot of good things while still trying to sort of test the waters of the players that they kept, which they decided to. That's on them. And with Kirk, the Kirk thing to me gets to be so intriguing because of this. Yes, Kirk's stats aren't great. Yes, Kirk is failing at places where he probably previously succeeded. But the late game drives and getting him in the fourth quarter to win you games is what I've been personally begging for since 2018.
It's kind of Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like Jimmy Garoppolo makes some dumb plays, but then he'll just like come up with these drives. And
how often did we say on this show we would take that? You know, guy. Give me the guy that can win the game over the guy that's padded his box score.
Yeah, and I need more from him, though. He can't. I mean, he is quite. Now, you could also argue that offense around the entire league is way down. You know, quarterback play is as bad in the first 6 weeks as it's been in any year in recent NFL history. So it's not just him that's off to a bad start. I want to say there's only 4 quarterbacks in the league that have a passer rating over 100. A third of the league had passer ratings over 100 last year. So some of this, it's almost like baseball where, boy, this Twins lineup is full of a bunch of garbage 215 hitters. Well, the league batting average is like 230.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
Some of it is Kirk, but Kirk is his slow start is at a slower pace than the league's slow start. So he needs to play better. It can't just be, he's having the worst year of his career, but he pops up at the end of a game. That's not going to be sustainable over the course of, the full season. So I don't want to just crown him and say, this is the version of Kirk that we've asked for the whole time. It's like, well, how about he puts up the numbers and also performs well when they need him with, 45 seconds left in the fourth quarter?
Don't you think, though, that O'Connell is, because it's my opinion that O'Connell, like this whole thing of like, it's going to work perfectly, and O'Connell worked with Kirk in Washington, and how can it go wrong, and he's going to be Stafford, was really overstated and wrong. I think O'Connell, and the work in progress here, and it's still a question, is Kirk Cousins the quarterback that Kevin O'Connell sees as the ideal fit for what he wants to do? I think the fact that O'Connell has very smartly moved to installing some Kubiak things for Kirk because he knows that's what makes Kirk comfortable. Keep in mind, John DeFilippo, for all his personal faults, came in here to run what he thought was a quarterback for an offense. I'm sorry, for a star quarterback, and
personal faults.
It failed miserably. Well, I mean, I think he had some problems too as far as what he did, so I'm not absolving him.
Personally, like.
No, I'm saying as far as coaching goes. Okay. I'm saying as far as coaching goes, I think John DeFilippo had issues that cost him as well. Okay. And probably some stubbornness and told Zim to buzz off, and Zim said, "You're fired." But all of that being said, he also came in here buying into, you just signed a superstar quarterback, 2018, put Kirk in shotgun a ton, did things that Kirk wasn't comfortable doing and said, why not? You're supposed to be a star quarterback. And so O'Connell's going to run into the same thing. Like, he is not running an offense for Kirk Cousins' personal gain. He is installing what he sees fit that he has seen work for him and Sean McVay. And this whole notion that Kirk was just going to step in and he's going to be Stafford, he's going to be this, he's going to be that, I think is mistaken. So there is a big question eventually here to be answered, which is Kirk Cousins the fit that Kevin O'Connell thought he would be? And we do not know that the answer to that question is yes.
The DiFilippo season is interesting because you're right. There's a lot you can just write off and say, well, John DiFilippo just didn't turn out to be the coordinator that everyone thought or the communicator or whatever. But at the end of the day, they decided to put a lot on Kirk's plate.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, it was difficult for him to handle as the season progressed. And then they reverted back to a more run the ball, sort of traditional play action. Kirk is kind of this old school. He likes to take a lot of snaps under center and play action. Is very good for his statistics and things. So are they putting too much on his plate and it's sinking him a little bit, or is it all going to work itself out once we get past the self-evaluation bye week and you get a home game against the reeling Cardinals? And I don't know. We just have to sort of wait and see what happens in the next few weeks.
I think the only way that it starts to work out, like where eye test wise, we say, wow, he's back, is if they incorporate more of what Kirk likes to do. Mm-hmm. I think taking Kirk physically out of his comfort zone is not going to work. The man is 34. I can tell you from personal experience, by that age, yar who yar probably. But where I credit O'Connell completely and Kirk as well, because Kirk, Dex said, and he's exactly right, on Monday, Kirk has become likable. Like, Kirk is doing things that are likable now. He's not being this corporate quarterback, which is what I tagged him with. Look at this, Shane. Like, look at this guy. This guy's likable.
Dude, how much money in Frost did... I love it. This is for the YouTube audience. This TikTok video.
Frost.
Kirk has a white T-shirt tucked into sweatpants. Is that what he's wearing? Mm-hmm. Are those just sweatpants? Is that more or less than $50,000 in ice around his neck?
Probably more. Probably more.
Darisaw's
we got to get Judd some ice.
Darisaw's chain is
Sports
what?
dad.
By itself, 40,000?
I don't even know where
that's
to
the
begin.
spinner.
How much do you pay extra for the spinning mechanism?
I
would think that the actual diamonds are probably the bulk of the cost, but
the spinning mechanism is going to cost you, right?
It's going to cost you something. Yeah, you got to get something to I don't know what the word is to make it spin. Yeah.
So last part of the thought though is that what I give O'Connell and Kirk credit for is combining to. They have somehow, I don't know, it feels like the trepidation on Kirk that we saw in the fourth quarter from 2018, really through 2020. It feels like he did make steps in 2021. They have found a way to overcome that. And so he is not, the one thing I will give him completely is, against the Bears, he threw a terrible pick and it would have completely submarined him 3 years ago. And it didn't. So I think the most important thing is the mental progression. I don't know if you can make the physical progressions that O'Connell truly wants.
Yeah, yes, I think you're right. Some of this is, Kevin O'Connell seems very meticulous. He actually went on, I believe it was KFXN FM radio last week, and he said, we want to be, this was like his, I think he might do a weekly coaches show. I'm not 100% sure, but I saw this quoted from Vikings Twitter that he wants the Vikings to be situational masters.
Yes.
Football.
I'm with him on this.
One of my theories on this is that Kirk, when given enough preparation, and then obviously when given protection, when the play snaps, is very, very good. First quarter, scripted plays, playbook is open, so defense can't just pin its ears back. Like when he has the planning advantage over a defense, he's one of the 3 to 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, which is kind of crazy to say, but he is. Statistically, he is.
Yep.
So I think sometimes when you get into these situations, call it third down long, red area, or 2-minute drill type stuff, red area is my favorite.
Football.
It's like when they call the playoffs the tournament.
I
Like,
love
you know
that,
that
by
you're
the
an
way.
inner ball guy if you call it the tournament and the red area.
Football.
Yes. I love the tournament. Great name for it.
It is. But a lot of those situations can be off script, unplanned, pressure, things that just kind of throw you off of whatever you had planned. Mm-hmm. But if Kevin O'Connell is taking being situational masters very seriously, then my guess is the level of planning that goes into, all right, guys, this game's been kind of chaotic so far, but now we're locked into a 2-minute drill. Now we're going to have some third and longs or some they know we're passing situations, but we've spent hours and hours and hours practicing those situations. We know exactly what plays work. We know what hot routes should be there. So you can't plan everything. If there's a 270-pound, or if Micah Parsons is bearing down on you in a few weeks, you can't simulate that in practice. But my guess is Kevin O'Connell is getting Kirk much more comfortable in sort of the unknown that pops up. And that's why we've seen some of these drives. But they haven't figured the whole thing out for 3 hours yet.
I also would love to know, and I don't know how this got out about Jared Goff and McVay back in the day, but here's what I would love to know. When does O'Connell stop talking to Kirk in the helmet? I feel like some of the grinding the teeth and holding
safety. Look at the safety.
And holding the helmet close. I'd like to know if that's right before 15 seconds sometimes, because it feels like there's a very good chance. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't hate Kirk. Okay, I got another note. I got a note from a guy saying
you're kind of a Kirk hater.
Mackey Mackee or something is gone, you are the hater now.
No, I'm back, and I'm looking to take my rightful place at the top.
And
of
you
the
know what?
Kirk
You are the
hater
CEO of
order.
Vikings Twitter. I don't care what anyone else says, because I have seen some people trying to claim that. You are it. But I would love to know when O'Connell cuts off the communication. And this is not a fault, but, to your point, Phil, about being meticulous, it would make sense that he is basically trying to help Kirk out at the line of scrimmage as long as he possibly can.
Oh, Kirk,
Which also, by the way,
53's the mic.
What?
reckless speculation for you. Reckless speculation. Stop grinding your teeth. I got some reckless speculation.
Reckless speculation.
In fact, you know what? This just hit me like a lightning bolt, and it makes perfect sense. So we talked about this a couple weeks ago. So the Vikings are running no huddle, but it's not a hurry up, right? So like they're not scrambling to the line to like run the play. Mm-hmm. They're diagnosing at the line.
And they're keeping personnel on the field, right?
And yes, which is also smart. But my question is this. If you do that, the play clock is triggered, but if you go huddle, you're in there till, I don't know, let's take a number.
16, 18 seconds left.
Exactly. Yeah. So that thing, the communication is going to shut off at 15. If you take Kirk up to the line of scrimmage immediately, so let's say it's at 30, 28, something like that, mm-hmm. Kevin O'Connell can see what's going on and tell Kirk, here's what we need to do. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Because how are you, I guess my question is this, mentally, how are you pulling Kirk through? And it would have to be tricks like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there were a couple of the writers that were covering the game in Miami noted some animated conversations on the sidelines too between, I don't know.
They showed one of them.
On Fox, they showed one.
Fox showed one. They were talking, but it was not like heated talking. It was like they were.
It's respectful.
Going back and forth.
I don't see either one of those two guys like personalities boiling over to that extent. Agreed. Where they would get like, in an altercation or something. But
you like that?
Yeah. But I think Kevin O'Connell, it's very apparent that whether he's in Kirk's headset until 15 seconds or just on the sidelines, like to have ongoing communication between head coach and quarterback, I have to think that this thing will get ironed out more and you'll start to see a swing. But anyways, like just that, my I guess back to the beginning of the conversation, my main observation has been that I tend to lean on the math for telling you what's going to happen. That's sort of my ethos as a sports blabbering head. And the math tells you this team is ripe for regression. But it also feels like there's a lot of room for improvement, and the bye week is coming here. They've also had a kind of a funky travel stretch. That's something, too. They went to London. They didn't get a bye week. Their preparation's been kind of thrown through the blender. And then they get a road game in Miami. So the bye week should be a good week to reset everything physically and then go back to the drawing board.
Time to self-scout is what you're saying.
Self-scouting is really the theme of the week here. Absolutely.
Love
we could all learn something.
Which, by the way, if you'd like to read more about that, Judd Zolgad at Vikings Wire has published a column on exactly that.
We should just carve out a shameless plugging section of every show here for Judd.
My friend at Vikings Wire, Tyler Forness, does a great job.
The real Forno, right on, man. Thanks to our friends at Federated for powering this deep dive into the Vikings and their future and Kirk Cousins. Federated's been around as a guiding hand, like a great offensive line for your business, really. helping businesses for over 100 years. They're based in Owatonna. They are one of us, so to speak. And you can find out how they can help your business at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. The show is back at full strength today, and we got to make some predictions and hold each other accountable with our Write That Down session on Mackey and Judd. So stick around for that.